Today we're talking about something most people never think about, but basically everyone depends on: rare earths. And not just the rocks in the ground, the processed materials that end up inside electric cars, wind turbines, smartphones, and some of the most advanced military systems on Earth. The big news is that China has tightened export restrictions affecting a group of U.S. companies, including major players tied to America's plan to rebuild rare earth supply chains. And if you're wondering why this matters, it's because rare earths are turning into the geopolitical leverage of our time. This podcast is based on the Nanthakumar Victor Emmanuel, professional engineer, post on his blog for browsing mining, mineral processing, and metals info.
It's wild how the word rare throws people off. A lot of rare earth elements aren't impossibly scarce in nature. The choke point is processing and refining, and China dominates that part. So when China makes a move like this, it's not just a trade headline, it's a supply chain shockwave.
Exactly. Let's put some basic context on the table. Rare earth elements are part of what powers modern life. They show up in electric vehicles, wind turbines, industrial machinery, consumer electronics, AI-related hardware, and defense technology like drones and advanced systems. A lot of those applications depend on high-performance magnets, the kind that need very specific materials to stay stable under heat and stress.
And that's where the heavy rare earths come in. People hear about rare earths and think it's one thing, but there are categories. Heavy rare earths are especially important for high-performance magnets. China doesn't just mine, it refines at a scale nobody else can touch right now. That's why Beijing has so much leverage even if deposits exist elsewhere.
So what did China do this time? China's Ministry of Commerce announced new restrictions that affect a set of American companies buying certain so-called dual-use products from Chinese suppliers. And among the impacted companies are MP Materials and USA Rare Earth, two names that come up constantly in U.S. efforts to reduce reliance on China for these materials.
Dual use is one of those phrases that sounds technical but changes everything. It basically means materials or products that can be used in civilian industries and military applications. So if you're restricting dual-use supply, you're not just squeezing consumer electronics. You're also putting pressure on defense and strategic manufacturing.
Right. And the materials at the heart of the issue include heavy rare earth metals like dysprosium and terbium. If those sound obscure, here's the simple version: they're key ingredients for magnets that can survive high temperatures. Without them, your motor or system may still work, but not as reliably, not as efficiently, and sometimes not at all depending on the design.
And it hits at a really specific moment. The US has been trying to rebuild domestic capacity, not just mining, but refining and magnet manufacturing too. The government, including the Department of Defense, has been putting serious money into it. You don't do that unless you think it's a national security issue.
Let's talk about the two companies mentioned because they represent the U.S. strategy in a nutshell. MP Materials runs the Mountain Pass mine in California, the biggest rare earth mining operation in the country. And the goal isn't just digging material up. They're building out magnet manufacturing capacity, including a major facility in Texas intended to serve commercial buyers and defense customers.
USA Rare Earth is also part of that rebuilding push, working on domestic manufacturing plans in Oklahoma and trying to secure supply through partnerships internationally. Both companies are essentially trying to help the US answer a difficult question. How do you build a full supply chain when the global middle of that chain is controlled by one country?
And here's the part that makes China's move so disruptive: even if you're building your own capability, there's a transition period. Factories don't appear overnight. Refining expertise takes time. Environmental approvals take time. Equipment takes time. In that in-between phase, you often still need imported inputs to ramp up. Restrictions can slow that ramp or make it dramatically more expensive.
Which brings us to dysprosium, the biggest pressure point right now. Dysprosium is used to help magnets keep their performance when temperatures rise. Think of parts in electric motors and systems exposed to heat and stress. And data from the industry suggests shipments of dysprosium from China to the US have basically gone quiet since around April 2025.
If you're a manufacturer, that's not an abstract problem. Dysprosium shows up in components tied to power steering, braking systems, electric motors, aerospace uses, and a range of defense technologies. Companies can try to replace dysprosium with terbium in some cases, but that's not a clean swap, and terbium supplies have also tightened.
And even if you can technically substitute, you still need consistent supply and predictable pricing. Engineering around scarce materials is one thing. Engineering around a supply that disappears with policy announcements is another.
Now zoom out. This isn't just a US-China story. Governments everywhere are trying to diversify critical minerals. At the G7 level, leaders have talked about reducing dependence on any single supplier, with goals like not having more than 60% of rare earth imports coming from one country by 2030.
That sounds reasonable until you look at the timeline. New mines and processing plants take years. You need capital, technical talent, permitting, and you need buyers willing to sign long-term contracts. There are promising projects in places like Australia, Brazil, Canada, and the US, but scaling to match China's refining capacity is a huge lift.
Also, the refining and separation step is the real bottleneck. People say, just mine more. But mining is only the beginning. The industrial know-how, the infrastructure, the chemical processing, and the economics of doing it at scale are where China has built decades of advantage.
So when China pulls this lever, it risks reigniting trade tensions. There have been diplomatic conversations in the past about keeping critical minerals flowing, but the progress has been limited. And the message from Beijing, intentional or not, is that rare earth exports can be used as a strategic tool when the relationship gets tense.
And you can see how Washington would interpret it. This isn't just about cheaper inputs for businesses, it's about resilience. If a country can slow your EV supply chain and also complicate defense production, then rare earth access becomes a national security issue, not merely an economic one.
Here's a question I keep coming back to. Are we watching the supply chain version of oil politics from previous decades? Because it feels like critical minerals are becoming the new energy geopolitics. Whoever controls the inputs controls the pace of the next tech era.
That's the big takeaway. Rare earths are likely to stay at the center of negotiations, disputes, and industrial policies, because they sit underneath electric transportation, renewable energy build-outs, advanced computing, and defense modernization. For American manufacturers, the practical challenge is accelerating alternatives, new sources, new processing, new recycling, new designs, while still operating in a world where China has overwhelming influence today.
And the outcome isn't just about who gets the raw materials. It's about who leads the next generation of technology, who can build at scale, and who can keep factories running when geopolitics gets messy.
So if you're listening and thinking, okay, but what should I watch next? Keep an eye on three things: whether the US can speed up refining and magnet manufacturing at home, whether non-China suppliers can scale fast enough to matter, and whether these restrictions expand beyond a handful of firms into broader categories. Because once critical minerals become a bargaining chip, the rules of the game change.
And they've changed in a way that reaches into everyday life, your car, your phone, your power grid, and into the parts of the economy most people never see. That's what makes this story so important.
That's it for today. If you want to hear more conversations where innovation, industry, and strategy collide, you can check out Innovators Club, where innovative minds meet, on YouTube at youtube.com/@NanthakumarVictorEmanuel18. Until next time, keep asking who controls the materials that power modern life, because that question is shaping the next few decades.